This is live from New Delhi. You're watching DT India News Hour, India's voice to the world. I'm Sakal Bhatt, and coming up in the next hour, India's External Affairs Minister calls on European Commission Chief Ursula von der Leyen in Delhi. She's set to hold wide-ranging talks with Prime Minister Modi. Israel Prime Minister instructs negotiators to head to Cairo for Gaza talks. Hamas says it's ready for more ceasefire talks. Ahead of his meeting with US President Donald Trump in Washington, UK's Prime Minister Keir Starmer says there's no more important relationship for UK than US. And Hollywood mourns as two-time Oscar winner Gene Hackman and his pianist wife Betsy Rakawa are found dead in their Santa Fe home along with their dog. Our top story, India's External Affairs Minister Dr. Jaishankar today called on the visiting European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen in New Delhi and lauded her views on re-energizing India's engagement with Europe. Dr. Jaishankar further stated that the wide-ranging participation of Indian ministers and EU College of Commissioners during the visit stands a testimony to the importance India gives to deeper India-EU ties. Elevating the India-EU multifaceted partnership to new heights, European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen arrived in New Delhi earlier on Thursday afternoon for the first visit of EU College of Commissioners to India. The European Commission President was accorded a very warm welcome and special welcome and was received by Minister of State for Health and Family Welfare Anupriya Patel. During the visit, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi and President von der Leyen will hold delegation-level talks likely covering the proposed India-EU free trade agreement, security cooperation and the Russia-Ukraine conflict. Discussions will also focus on expanding the India-EU strategic partnership to new areas like defense technology and energy cooperation. Ursula von der Leyen is accompanied by the European Union College of Commissioners and the second ministerial meeting of the India-EU Trade and Technology Council, as well as bilateral ministerial meetings will be held during this important visit. Upon her arrival, EU Commission President in a social media post wrote, and I quote, "In an era of conflicts and intense competition, you need trusted friends. For Europe, India is such a friend and a strategic ally," unquote. She also added that she would discuss with Prime Minister Modi the ways and means to take India-EU strategic partnership to next level. European Commission President also started her day in India by paying homage to Mahatma Gandhi at the Rajghat in national capital. And staying with our top story, European Commission President is in India, accompanied by 21 out of 27 EU commissioners, and this is the first ever visit of the EU College of Commissioners together to India and is definitely indicative of the strong momentum in EU-India relationship under the current ruling dispensation of Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi. The delegation's visit is designed, so to say, to deepen and diversify cooperation amongst across multiple sectors. My next report examines what makes this visit of EU chief landmark and unprecedented in many ways. Landmark visit by the President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, accompanied by the European Union College of Commissioners on an official visit to India on 27th and 28th February 2025. This is first ever visit of the EU College of Commissioners together to India and among the first such visits since the start of mandate of the current European Commission in December 2024 after the European parliamentary elections were held in June 2024. India and European Union are strategic partners since 2004, and as the two sides enter the third decade of the strategic partnership, von der Leyen and EU commissioners' visit will further consolidate ties based on growing convergences. Prime Minister Narendra Modi and President von der Leyen is expected to engage in comprehensive talks covering the proposed free trade agreement, defense and security cooperation, and the Russia-Ukraine conflict. The Second Trade and Technology Council, or the TTC, is expected to convene during the visit, which aims to boost collaboration on the digital transition, clean and green technologies, trade and investment. On the anvil are collaboration on digital public infrastructure and resilience of key value chains, cooperation on global trade, strengthening AI collaboration at both bilateral and EU levels. This is President Ursula von der Leyen's third visit to India. She has earlier visited India for a bilateral official visit in April 2022 and to attend the G20 Leaders Summit in September 2023. Prime Minister Modi and President Ursula von der Leyen have also met regularly on the sidelines of several multilateral meetings. The visit follows President von der Leyen's announcement of a new strategic agenda with India to be presented this year at the EU-India Summit. Therefore, the visit puts thrust on big-ticket areas vital to security and growth of both Europe and India. The visit holds symbolic and strategic significance by setting the stage for more robust India-European Union rubric, both at the governmental and institutional levels. Sakal Bhatt's report for DD India. Shifting focus to some other news, next month Princess Astrid will lead the Belgium economic mission aiming to deepen trade relations between the two nations. Belgium's ambassador to India, Didier van der Hessel, told DD India's Jessica Taneja that she will be accompanied by at least 330 delegates along with more than 80 companies.
Tell us about this economic mission and why at this time.
Well, indeed. So we have this Belgian economic mission led by Her Royal Highness Princess Astrid coming to India. I think it's a very significant mission, 330 delegates, 3 ministers, our Deputy Prime Minister is joining, Minister of Defense, Minister President of Flanders. More than 180 companies are joining. Of course, these are the kind of missions that have been prepared for months, but I think apart from that, the timing couldn't be better. We are coming here just a few days after the European Commission comes in its entirety to India. It's a historic visit, I think. We come with one of the biggest delegations to India, so the significance is quite important. We have indeed this long history of bilateral relations and economic partnerships. We see that our trade is diversifying, that our companies are investing more and more here, that also more and more Indian companies are interested to invest in Belgium. So it's difficult to underestimate this mission. And I think indeed the timing is quite important. We are one of the most open economies in the world. We have free trade in our veins, and so we are in favor of a rules-based, multilateral free trade environment. And so that's of course why we, as a country, support the European Commission 100% in these negotiations on a free trade agreement with India. The potential that this free trade agreement would give to EU-India trade and to Belgian-India trade is really immense and is significant. So we are very supportive of the European Commission when it comes to these negotiations.
A Russian delegation arrived on Thursday at the residence of the U.S. Consul General in Istanbul for Russia-U.S. talks on resolving disputes over the work of their embassies in Washington and Moscow. U.S. delegation will be led by Deputy Assistant Secretary of State Sonata Kutler, while the Russian delegation will be led by Alexander Darchiev, the Russian Ministry of Foreign Affairs Director of the North Atlantic Department, and also Russia's ambassador designate for the United States. The meeting follows a phone call between Presidents Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump on February 12 and a high-level diplomatic meeting in Saudi Arabia on 18th of Feb. President Donald Trump has confirmed that Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky will come to the White House to sign an agreement on natural resources and reconstruction of the war-torn Ukraine. US has also confirmed that Ukraine was not on the agenda during Thursday's meeting between Russian and US diplomats in Turkey. Meanwhile, Ukrainian president is set to visit Washington to sign a rare earths deal. But concerns are looming large among European allies about potential sidelining in peace talks. Ravindra Chauhan of DD India gets us more.
The peaceful solution to the Russia-Ukraine conflict is in focus, with multiple parties involved in discussions surrounding the crisis. However, the US has stated that Ukraine is not on the agenda in the Thursday's meeting between Russia and US diplomats in Turkey. The meeting aims to repair bilateral ties. This meeting is understood to be a preliminary test of their ability to reset wider relations and work towards ending the war in Ukraine.
What we see is that the President Trump speaks himself and is ready to listen to the others. This is very important, and this is what differs dramatically the present Washington administration from the previous one. Our diplomats are working to develop the understanding which has been reached during the phone call between the two presidents.
Meanwhile, US President Donald Trump has confirmed Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky's visit to Washington on Friday to sign a deal on rare earths and minerals. Zelensky, however, maintained that the success of the deal would hinge on the talks and continued US aid.
President Zelensky is going to be coming on Friday. That's now confirmed, and we're going to be signing an agreement which will be a very big agreement. And I want to thank Howard and Scott for the job you guys did in putting it together. Really did an amazing job. And that'll be on rare earth and other things.
But amidst President Zelensky's visit to Washington, Ukraine's European allies are concerned that Trump's swift rapprochement with Moscow could result in a war-ending deal that would completely sideline them and threaten their security. President Zelensky has also been invited to a special EU summit on March 6 to discuss possible European security guarantees for Ukraine. The summit comes as Europe seeks to strengthen its position after US President Donald Trump initiated talks with Russia to end the 3-year war. With Ravindra Chauhan, Amit Mukherjee for DD India.
During his recent visit, Alexei Rusek, a governor of Ulyanovsk in Russia, highlighted the key areas of humanitarian cooperation between India and the development of education initiatives. Take a listen.
The interaction between Russia and India within the BRICS framework opens up wide opportunities for both countries. Among them are the strengthening of cultural ties through joint events and the development of educational initiatives, the creation of business projects and startups to stimulate economic growth and solve social and environmental problems through volunteer projects, as well as the active participation of young people in political process and discussions of important issues, exchange of experience in the field of technology and innovation. The role of the BRICS alliance is growing every day. The involvement of the youth of the BRICS member countries in positive global changes is also growing. Young leaders from India are involved in events organized by the Russia BRICS International Youth Cooperation Project Office.
And still to come on DD India News Hour. Coming up next, we take a look at the mega global coverage of Mahakumbh 2025 across the leading international dailies, and Bangladeshi students to announce new political party. Also, we get you more on the former US House Chief Administrative Officer Faulkner He visited the Pradhan Mantri Sangrahalaya in New Delhi.
Complex issues, hidden agendas, twists and turns, strategic games. We think all dots are linked. We just need to connect them. Join me every week as I connect the dots to unravel hidden designs in statecraft, mysteries, and decode issues that matter to you. Watch Connecting the Dots with me at these times on DD India.
You're watching TT India News Hour. I'm Sakal Bhatt. Moving on to some more news and updates. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer will meet US President Donald Trump on Thursday. Ahead of the meeting, Starmer has stressed that there is no more important relationship with the UK than the one with the Washington. He said this at a meeting with business leaders at the residence of the British ambassador to the US.
We are reforming permitting, getting things built, reducing barriers to investment and growth, and we're open for business, open for investment, and we're determined to help US innovators thrive in the United Kingdom. So my message is we want to work with you, we want to welcome you to Britain, we want a new partnership, because our history shows that when we work together, great things happen.
Meanwhile, on the issue of peace in Ukraine, Starmer has urged the US to provide a security backstop to any future European peacekeepers in Ukraine, saying only that would offer Kyiv a lasting peace rather than a temporary ceasefire. Starmer will be hosting Zelensky, Macron and other European leadership in Britain on Sunday as momentum grows further. With Britain and France proposing peacekeepers, the shape of a possible deal has begun to emerge, but now it will be up to Moscow and Washington to seal it. Well, as the first phase of the hostage swap ends, both Israel and Hamas have expressed willingness to extend the ceasefire and begin the next round of peace talks in Cairo. Following the release of Palestinian prisoners and the handover of 4 Israeli hostages' bodies, the fate of 54 remaining captives hangs in the balance, with tensions still running high in the region. Saeed Abzarul Hassan of DD India gets us more.
As the first phase of hostage swapping stand completed, both Israel and Hamas has expressed willingness to extend the ongoing ceasefire and start the second round of negotiation for a long-standing peace in the region. This follows the release of several hundred Palestinian prisoners as Hamas hand over the bodies of 4 Israeli hostages. Though Israel alleged that the 3 were murdered in captivity, Hamas denied the charges, stating that deaths were due to Israeli bombardment. Though both sides prepare for the second phase, tensions continue to prevail in the region. The next round of talks would decide the fate of 54 hostages still under Hamas captivity in Gaza, amidst Israel facing mounting pressure to either continue the ceasefire or resume military action. Hamas, however, maintain that hostages will only be freed if the ceasefire continues. Meanwhile, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has pledged to work relentlessly to bring back all the hostages held in Gaza. The Israeli Prime Minister has instructed his negotiation delegation to depart for Cairo to continue Gaza ceasefire talks. The conflict's human toll is devastating. On one hand, Palestinians are struggling for shelter due to destruction in Israeli attacks, while anger rises in Israel over the condition of the hostages. Palestinian prisoners released in exchange for hostages arrived in Khan Yunus, making a significant step in the ceasefire agreement. As the first phase of ceasefire ends, uncertainty hangs over Gaza's future. Will the ceasefire lead to peace, or will the conflict resume? With Israel demanding military presence and Hamas holding firm on hostages, the path ahead is unclear. Syed Abzarul Hassan for DT India.
Turkey's jailed militant leader Abdullah Öcalan called on his Kurdistan Workers' Party on Thursday to lay down its arms and dissolve itself. In a letter read by Turkey's pro-Kurdish DEM party, this move could end its 40-year conflict with Ankara and have far-reaching political and security implications for the region. A delegation of Turkey's pro-Kurdish DEM party visited Öcalan in his island prison and later delivered his statement. Shifting focus to Bangladesh, there the students who were at the forefront of the last year's protests that ousted the then Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina are all set to launch a political party on Friday. The Anti-Discrimination Student Movement and the Jatiya Nagarik Committee announced that they would launch their political party at Manik Mia Avenue in the capital Dhaka on February 28th. Earlier on Tuesday, student leader Nahid Islam has resigned from the Advisory Council of the interim government as the Information and Broadcasting Advisor amid discussions that he would join a new political party. He said that given the current situation in the country, the rise of a new political force is necessary. Nahid is likely to become the convener of the new political party. Two explosions that rocked a city in eastern Congo after a meeting of the M23 armed group on Thursday have killed at least 11 people and injured around 60. President Felix Tshisekedi called the explosions a heinous terrorist act. A first explosion caused panic, sending spectators fleeing before a second rang out. The meeting, which took place in South Kivu provincial capital Bukavu, was attended by one of the armed group's leaders, Cornel Nanga. Bukavu is one of the two key cities in the turbulent region seized in recent weeks by anti-government M23 fighters, who UN experts say are backed by Rwandan forces. East DRC has been the scene of decades of relentless conflict, but has been plunged into fresh turmoil as fighters from the M23 group seize swaths of territory in the two provinces. Well, India's peace dreams are making waves globally. Former NASA astronaut Mike Massimino visited Kendriya Vidyalaya in Delhi, sharing his incredible journey beyond Earth. He praised India's space journey, highlighting how the Chandrayaan mission was a headline in the US. He added that India looked great from space, and from here it looks incredible.
It's wonderful. They made me feel so welcome. And I just arrived here. I think they arranged it very quickly, which amazes me that we were able to do this on short notice. But no, it is great. The students were very polite, had some great questions. The whole school, very welcoming. They just made me feel very welcome. And I think the enthusiasm, not just for the space program, but for the STEM fields here, I think that's really, really important. It's always been important to me. And so it's great to see it in work here. And the school just seems wonderful. The students, it couldn't be nicer, and everyone is so nice. I was so happy I had a chance to come visit. Great. India has a lot to offer. You know, I'm familiar with a lot of the students, people I've worked with at NASA, and a lot of the students that we have in the United States are very hardworking, very smart. I'm really glad to see the advances that they've made in the space program. Chandrayaan mission was amazing. It created a lot of excitement, not just here, but in the United States as well. I admired it from space when I flew over, and I'm glad I'm on the ground here getting a chance to see it. But people are just lovely, so nice, so welcoming, very nice. And I'm interested in taking a look around and seeing more. This is my first time here.
Former U.S. House Chief Administrative Officer Scott Faulkner visited the Pradhan Mantri Sangrahalaya in National Capital. He explored several attractions in the museum. Pradhan Mantri Sangrahalaya is a museum in tribute to all former Prime Ministers of India. Scott Faulkner said that India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi is one of the top leaders in the world and is an inspiration to others. He added that there should be more museums like this across the world.
I think he's one of the great leaders of the world right now. I mean, when you start to look around at other heads of state, he is definitely one of the top. Definitely one of the top. Again, an inspiration to others who are also trying to grapple with similar issues in their parts of the world. So very much an inspiration. This museum's an inspiration, and it should be shared far and wide. India is certainly looking at the cutting edge of how do we take the mid-21st century with the technology, with the needs of people, and pull them all together. So I think you're becoming a leader in the world. I mean, certainly you hosted the G20 a couple of years ago. You are the largest country. You're becoming an economic powerhouse. You're a great counterbalance to less democratic places like China, and is therefore you're a key part to what the future of this world is all about. And a place like this museum gives us these kind of pieces to take to other people.
Former U.S. House Chief Administrative Officer Faulkner also visited newly constructed Parliament building. He said that he was highly impressed with the state-of-the-art architecture and technology of the newly constructed Parliament.
So I was very impressed with the overall architecture and also really enjoyed learning about how your parliament functions in terms of where the majority minority sit and when the Prime Minister speaks, having to deal with so many languages and simultaneous translation and the fully automated document system. Those were all things that we could all learn from.
Professor Carlos Montes, who leads Innovation Hub at University of Cambridge Business School, is in New Delhi, where he witnessed India's digital revolution firsthand with UPI. Professor Carlos was briefed about the massive transaction process over past years and how UPI transformed global payments, driving financial inclusion and setting a new standard for secure, fast transactions. UPI has not only made financial transactions fast, secure and effortless, but it has also empowered individuals, small businesses and merchants, driving the country's shift towards a cashless economy. Professor Carlos was also briefed over the UPI's global operational, including key markets like UAE, Singapore and France.
I have been studying UPI and rapid payment systems for some time, so I think what impresses me is that the constant evolution, the fact that all these services are focused on making the technology more friendly. The importance of UPI and all these technologies that focus on citizens is that the fact that the people that are working on these technologies make sure that it can be used by any citizen in India.
The Mahakumbh Mela, held in Prayagraj, India, and recognized as the world's largest spiritual gathering, has concluded, but attracting an estimated 660 million devotees. This year's event has garnered widespread attention from global media, with positive coverage focusing on its spiritual significance, cultural richness and impressive logistical coordination, one of the biggest on planet Earth. French daily Le Monde describes the Mahakumbh as India's eternal spiritual heritage, lauding the scale and organization of the festival. The report highlights how millions of pilgrims have gathered at the confluence of the Ganges, Yamuna and Saraswati rivers for ritual bathing, believed to cleanse sins and other liberation. The article also marvels at the massive infrastructure, at least 150,000 toilets, 68,000 streetlights and a tent city spanning an area two-thirds the size of the Manhattan. The UK's The Guardian focuses on the revival of ancient Hindu sects, particularly the Akharas, monastic orders tracing back to the 6th century. The article highlights how more sadhus are embracing asceticism, marking what one priest calls the beginning of a new era. The report praises how the festival has become a platform for spiritual awakening among India's youth, with more than 10,000 initiations taking place this year, an unprecedented number. The New York Times marvels at the logistical brilliance of Mahakumbh, calling it a pop-up city the size of Manhattan. The piece describes the 15-square-mile settlement built on the riverbed, complete with medical facilities, security personnel and luxury tents for international pilgrims. The report also notes the festival's special significance this year due to a rare celestial alignment, making it an even more powerful spiritual experience. The Times UK applauds the Mahakumbh Mela as the world's largest gathering, praising India's ability to manage a congregation of this scale and expanse. The article describes the grand spectacle of colourful processions, devotional singing and the presence of millions of devotees seeking divine blessings. A look at the Boston Globe, it captures the mystique of the festival, focusing on the Naga sadhus, ash-smeared naked ascetics who symbolize ultimate renunciation. The report highlights their commitment to spiritual discipline, including a young sadhu who has vowed to stand upright for 12 years. The article describes Mahakumbh as a living testament, deep-rooted faith and devotion. From spiritual awakenings to logistical marvels, the Mahakumbh Mela 2025 is capturing hearts and headlines across the world. With faith, tradition and modern management converging, this historic gathering continues to be a beacon of India's rich cultural heritage. Nancy Baloda's report for DD India. And now let's take a look at other stories making news around the world. We begin with French President Emmanuel Macron beginning a two-day official visit to Portugal with a meeting with President Marcelo Rebelo on Thursday. During his state visit, Macron is scheduled to meet with Prime Minister Luis Montenegro in Porto on Friday to discuss the situation in Ukraine, security matters and sign several cooperation agreements. Austria's Conservative People's Party announced a government coalition with two smaller centrist parties that excludes the far right, which came first in the elections in September. This decision ends Austria's longest stretch of time without a government in modern history. Hundreds of people waited in long queues outside donut shops in Poland to buy the traditional sweet treats on Fat Thursday. It is a tradition in Poland where people eat donut to attract good luck. The festivity takes place annually on the last Thursday before Lent, the period when Christians traditionally fast before Easter. And still to come on DD India News Hour. On the other side, we will be discussing India-EU cementing strategic priorities with this particular visit of European Commission Chief along with her team of commissioners. What does it mean for India and EU on the other side, with special guests joining us from Geneva and India.
Geopolitics and trade deals. Economic challenges amid development. Hard work and the path to prosperity. It's the economy always. Between walkers, money is what money does and says. Supply creates its own demand. Between the bulls pulls and bears tears. When supply chains globalization and India rises to the podium. We'll get you centered with the Economic Brief at 8 p.m. every Thursday on DD India.
You're watching DT India News Hour. I'm Sakal Bhatt, and going back to our lead story on EU chief in New Delhi with sizable party from the European Union's College of Commissioners accompanying her. We are looking at more than 20 senior political leaders from EU member states and von der Leyen. They will be meeting Prime Minister Modi tomorrow. The trip comes a day after US President Donald Trump said that he would impose 25% tariffs on imports from the EU, and India looking to bolster its ties with the EU. So what does each side hope to gain and what's on the agenda? We are joined by a special panel of guests. Let me welcome Ms. Chitra Subramaniam, international policy expert, journalist, author, joining us all the way from Geneva. Geneva being the center of Europe and home of European headquarters of the United Nations. Thank you so much, Chitra ma'am, for taking out time for DD India, and always a pleasure to have Professor Manoj Pant. Namaste, sir. seasoned economist and former Vice Chancellor of IFT, joining us on the broadcast. Thank you very much, Professor. Thank you very much. I'm going to quickly start with Chitraji. Very quickly, overall significance for both sides, the timings and the broader agenda. There's a sense that we are looking at more trade-centric talks with an EU-India trade agreement in the pipeline for, I think, around 17 years now. And this is crucial, and this is perhaps big, considering she's coming here with a big team. Opening remarks.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Sakal, for the invitation. I'll just make one quick point, and I think that power has a new destination, and that's New Delhi. We've simply got to accept, we are becoming a major power. And you'll see one after the other. The fact that Madame van der Leyen has come with such a big delegation, it's the first time. And, there is such a churn in international relations. But we're the only country in the world that can talk to Moscow, that can talk to Washington, that can talk to the whole world. And this is, hats off to our own diplomacy, that we don't have any big enemies. We don't believe in that. So yes, there will be trade, there will be security, and the European Union needs us we're a strategic, trustworthy partner. So my opening remark is that power has a new destination, and that is New Delhi.
That's quite a strong and loaded statement. And why not? Why not? Professor Pant,
ambitious. No, what is wrong with being ambitious?
Absolutely. Professor Pant is smiling. I think he agrees with us. But Professor Pant, strategic significance for Europe in particular, the timings that I mentioned, President Trump's increasingly a sort of unpredictable approach towards Europe of late, newly announced plan to put a 25% tariff on imports, and this visit, there's a lot of conversation happening around FTA and all of that. So how do you see this?
Well, I think that is the guiding factor. I think Chitra is not completely wrong about the power business, but it's not as if India has become the power center of the world. It isn't. But the fact remains, we have become the most neutral body available to people anywhere. And the fact that this ball has been set only by Mr. Trump, who has made it clear that he's after the EU, he's after Canada, Mexico, and China. Now, who's left? India is the only one left. Now, what is it about EU? We already trade a lot with EU. The other factor that's there for India is we also do trade substantially with the US. I'm talking about commodity trade. And although it is not a deal killer for us, I do believe India needs to move its trade away from the US because, as I said, at least for the next 4 years, Trump is a completely unpredictable factor. So EU becomes even more important for us in trade-wise than it was in 2012, when for small things the whole negotiations fell apart. Remember, 13 years ago, these Indo-EU discussions had begun, also Indo-UK. Then Brexit happened, and now, of course, the big daddy of all, Trump, happened. So Trump is certainly a factor in making both countries or both blocs, India as a country and EU as a bloc, wanted to come together not only on trade but on other issues. For example, foreign investment. People keep talking about trade. Very critical part of relations is foreign investment. We've never had except for the CECA except with the CECA country, with the EU countries, some of the ECM countries, we have never had a serious investment agreement as part of our trade. And secondly, remember that we have to now get ready with our trade in services, which is really what makes a big difference. I'll tell you why quickly in 2 minutes. All this talk about Trump is in fact a lot of waste of time because he's only talking about commodity trade. He's only concerned about commodity trade and he does not account for more than 13% of global commodity trade. So Trump cannot do anything seriously to the world in commodity trade, but the world has to understand that they need to get together. So even more important for India to trade with EU, India to trade with and that's why I believe this is a particular significance.
Yes, and we're not making it about Trump, but it's about India and EU. It's about Prime Minister Modi's leadership and Ursula von der Leyen's, leadership and how they like. Yeah. So,
this is all driven by other factors.
Absolutely. So, other factors, Professor Pant, and then ma'am can take it up. This proposed India, Middle East, Europe Economic Corridor, or IMAC. There's a lot of talk about that as well, which would serve as a building block, so to say, for India's strategy on the connectivity with its Western partners or Western continental partners. But we are also looking at counterbalancing China. So, IMAC on the agenda?
Yeah, certainly. IMAC is certainly an agenda because most of trade is done by sea. 95% of the world trade is done by sea, not by air. So getting the IMAC corridor going is a very important part of it because we've got some friendly countries in between, including, for example, Iran. And so I do believe that's a project India began long back, even prior to Mr. Trump taking place. So that's something which always the objective was how to push commodity trade along the sea. But the other factor, please remember, do not let me understate the importance of it. The EU is also coming here, certainly you'll see it coming up next few days, with the agenda on services. Now we are woefully unprepared on that. We have no idea, at least I am not aware of it. I know there's a government body working very hard on it right now. We have no idea how to negotiate trade in services, except we bring out that tired mode 4, let our professionals in, let our professionals. That seems to be the only thing we keep talking about, which no country really wants to do. Even we don't want to.
Okay.
So I think we need to very quickly get our act together as far as trade in services is concerned. And on commodities, I think the parameters are already laid down. We've already agreed to a number of things with Mr. Trump. On whiskey, we reduced on bourbon. I don't see how we can say no, but we will not do it for EU. So in spirits, it's possible to bring it down. In autos, you will see the same thing coming up. There's not such a big problem anymore. I think our auto manufacturers are much prepared.
Right.
So I do believe that there's a lot going forward. There's a outside impetus which pushes EU, all FTAs are pushed by third-party factors.
Okay.
And third-party factors big today.
Okay. Chitra ma'am, mutually beneficial for EU and India, the way they see each other as potential sources of stability. And this at a time when you see so much of turbulence and bloc politics driven, geopolitical landscape. How do you see this visit in that light?
I am a hardliner when it comes to self-interest. I don't trust anyone except my own country. And I think geopolitics is nothing more than just self-interest. You should be driving your country's interests. And the EU, let's not forget, many of them are former colonizers. And, Mr. Macron recently made a statement that India is like a wealth of engineers. I mean, what does that mean? I mean, remember Mr. Ayatollah Khomeini saying we're a degree factory. So I don't like this, patronizing attitude towards us. And you can call me whatever you want, but we should be, as I said, power is now on our side. Coming back to China, when you asked earlier.
Yes.
Now, main trade in investments, that's trips, trims, and services. These negotiations happened at the WTO, and I was reporting on them. Coming back to China, Sakal, let us not forget that we're the only democracy in the region. We have elections. We elect our leaders. I mean, we are a major democracy in the region, and we should play that to our advantage. Look at what's happening in Europe. They're in a complete turmoil. They don't know what's going on. The Europe is today very powerless. I mean, they're divided, France, Germany. Mr. Zelensky, as we speak, is on his way to the United States to make a deal with them without the EU. So we are a neutral power, as Mr. Pant said, and we should play this absolutely for our interests only.
That is happening, Professor Pant, but with most of the European commissioners visiting with Ms. von der Leyen, how do you see this as a big step for both European autonomy and for also enhancing the equation between the world's two largest democracies? Because why I'm saying two largest democracies, because EU has referred to India and the bloc as world's largest democracies.
Yes, that's true. Now, I'm telling you, this is something which has worked for India for a long time. In fact, way back to the days of Kennedy and the Vietnam War, the 60s, the drought in India, democracy has been our biggest calling card. But apart from that, remember that at the moment the ball is slightly in our court, not because we are a very serious world power, the greatest in the world, but because the factor that the EU at the moment needs us more than we need the EU. In terms of commerce, because they have an issue. The Trump is on collision course with them. He's got, he's a very personal kind of person. He takes things very personal. He doesn't really care about the economics and everything, but those things work out. He's got a personal problem with some of the leaders, and of course that sidekick of his has even greater personal problems. So we are in the driving seat as far as that is why this whole delegation has come. Why didn't the delegation come in 2012 or 2014? Why have they all come today? Because I do believe we are in the driving seat as far as politics is concerned. I do believe we are also in the driving seat as far as trade and services is concerned. But remember, where I disagree with Chitra is, the principle of trade is give and take. There is no such thing as everyone does everything in their own interest. They do. But if you do things only in your interest and everyone does things only in their own interest, then in the history what happened in 1930s, we can't do that. So there is give and take. I think it's been worked out. The negative points in 2012 we worked out. I think sticking points today will be CBAM.
Okay.
So there are two ways I would look at CBAM. I don't think the European Union Parliament will allow them to back out from CBAM.
Okay.
But what they can do is we can push them to a corner by pushing the horizon beyond 26. We can also tell them, look, you pay us. It's in our interest to ask them, tell us. The technology.
So what am I looking at? Am I looking at some major breakthroughs, Chitra ma'am? Fundamentally, how do you look at India, EU with their respective agendas at this juncture? For example, this whole re-energizing the EU-India strategic partnership roadmap, and the paper also says that deepening collaboration through EU-India TTC.
So I do agree with Mr. Pant that negotiations are give and take, but we are now in a spot where we can actually push them to the corner because the two largest economies, France and Germany, are in shambles. I mean, they are the ones who are, the big EU nations. So, I think that we should be, as he said, trade in services, whatever works to our interest. And this I will leave to the experts or people who are writing the documents, because we need to see where are we heading in the next 10 years. What is it that we need? Because the EU needs us more than we need them. And while you can say that these are technical details, I have learned from my reporting, that beyond the point, it's all political. The fact that Madame von der Leyen has come with her top commissioners in a first. What is that signal? That signals that they need us.
Yes.
So yes, let us sit down and figure out what's good for us, and look at the long term. And there's China, and there is we have to play it to our advantage. And I have faith in my government. I really do.
Okay. So, Mr. Subramaniam, though many of its initiatives are still in early stages, but both sides, in fact, ma'am, you can have a sip of water. Meanwhile, I can take this question to Professor Pant. So, I'm looking at tangible progress in trade, in investment, and in technology cooperation. Now, what do we get to see at the end of it on the table in terms of moving forward? Professor Pant.
Okay, very simple. As far as trade is concerned, and please separate, it's important to separate commodity trade from service trade. They're two different things. Initially, negotiations are always about commodity trade. Service trade negotiations are much more protracted. Now, anyway, on commodity trade, I don't see any issue. Their interest is spirits, which we have already made some give and take with the US. I don't see why we can't extend it to EU. And we've been already creating the ground for that within India, because we are looking also at Indo-UK FTA. The next comes the issue of automobiles. Now, we are not today in a situation of car companies being scared of the EU car companies. I don't see any problem. We are the largest exporter of parts in the world, with the biggest exporters of car parts. So we would always gain from increased trade, whether it is even more imports. We would still gain from a parts industry. Now we have two things on which India will obviously talk to them. I believe CBAM is a big issue. The carbon border adjustment mechanism, where they're putting some duties, 20 to 25%. The question is, make them part of the solution. Don't make yourself the problem. Say, okay, here's a solution. If you're not going to back out from them, and I think your parliament will not let you back out, you tell us who's going to finance this. What is the technology? And that's why I talk about foreign investment. You bring in the foreign investment which allows us to get the technology to avoid the CBAM problem. We are as happy. We have also made commitments in the World Fora. Mr. Modi has made commitments on reducing our own.
Okay. I'm sorry. Okay. Professor Pat, I'm so sorry to cut you short here because I really need to wrap up. One final and briefly, ma'am, in 30-40 seconds, robust Europe outreach we have seen, in the last 1 year by Prime Minister Modi. There's a certain direction to this whole India-EU ties. Little more than a year, we've seen Prime Minister visiting Greece, Italy, France, Austria, Poland, and then Ukraine. In that light, how do you see this India-EU outreach? Final word.
Final word, going well. The direction is going well. We are the largest market. I mean, let's look at it. I mean, we are 3 times the EU, but one final word I would say is that let's look at the environment. They're going to come up with non-technical barriers to trade and say, you can't do this, you can't do that. So you get polluter pays. Put some money in the environment section because that's where we need, investments as well. Okay. So that's my final word.
Okay. Professor Pant, 10 seconds. Yes.
Yeah, I agree with the last part. I just said earlier that we need to get some help in technology. We really need it. No point returning the wheel, particularly in the context of the environment, because that's where we are headed to.
All right. So, like ma'am started by saying that the power center has the New Delhi, that's the destination. Thank you very much, both of you, for joining us on this discussion. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Namaste. Let's quickly move on to some other stories. India's largest and most influential AVGC XR conference in Bangalore kicked off today at the Lalit Ashok Bangalore, running from February 27 to 1st of March. This brings together key industry leaders. Information and Broadcasting Secretary Sanjay Jaju, speaking at the event, hailed Waves as the first event to unite the global media and entertainment industry.
The advisory board members have decided that the Waves is now going to be held from 1st May till 4th May in Mumbai at the Geo Center. It will be one of its kind event because this is the first time all the verticals of media entertainment are going to get together. Now we have events like this. I mean, this is one vertical, but there are so many verticals in the media entertainment pie. You have the traditional news, you have the traditional television, you have the traditional radio, you have the graphics segment, you have the film segment, as we all know about it. You also now have the new media, you have the social media. This is arguably the world's first convergence event where all these verticals are being put together.
Waves Bazaar is a e-marketplace wherein the buyers and sellers can meet, and there is a wonderful opportunity for networking and present your products, and also it is an opportunity for buyers to identify the right products. It's a wonderful opportunity for both buyers and sellers alike. That is the Waves Bazaar. The URL of the same is also displayed in your screen. You can log into it and the registration is free. Please make the maximum use of it.
All the media and entertainment industry people across the globe are going to come there, and you will see some of the biggest names like Steven Spielberg and James Cameron and many of the technicians coming to that particular platform. This is organized by the industry, for the industry, and people like Rajinikanth, Shah Rukh Khan and Amitabh Bachchan ji, and as well as all the film fraternities are backing this up, and they are really putting in all the efforts to make this.
We are an animation company. We are developing IPs for animation content, for animation, gaming, and comics as well. So we are developing a bunch of IPs right now, and one of our IPs is Academy of Gods. So we are reaching out for the broadcasters for the animation, and we did apply for Waves 2025 for the competition of IP India.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi chaired a high-level meeting to review the Ayush sector. Prime Minister highlighted its growing global acceptance and its role in sustainable development, reiterating the government's commitment to strengthening Ayush through policy support, research and innovation. The Ayush sector has grown into a key force in healthcare, achieving major milestones in education, research and global outreach. In fact, Ayush market has surged from 2.85 billion to 23 billion. India leads in evidence-based traditional medicine. Ayush research in 10 years has surpassed previous 60 years. Ayush visa is set to boost medical tourism. Global collaborations, in fact, drive Ayush's breakthroughs. AI integration also strengthens Ayush's digital growth. Lulu Group, the leading retail giant, has been awarded the prestigious Sheikh Mansour bin Zayed Agricultural Excellence Award for its outstanding contributions to the UAE's agriculture sector and sustainability initiatives. Award is among the UAE's most esteemed initiatives encouraging farmers and livestock breeders to embrace modern technologies and sustainable practice. Lulu Group, founded Indian entrepreneur M.A. Yusuf Ali, has been a steadfast advocate of these principles in Abu Dhabi. In a tragic news, just 4 days before the Oscar ceremony, two-time Academy winner Gene Hackman and his wife Betsy Rakawa have been found dead in their home in U.S. state of New Mexico. According to the sheriff's office in Santa Fe, New Mexico, Hackman, the intense character actor who won 2 Oscars in more than 60-year career, has died alongside his wife, pilot Betsy Rakawa, and their dog at home. Hackman, a former Marine known for his raspy voice, appeared in more than 80 films as well as on television and stage during a lengthy career that started in early 1960s. Hackman was an intense character actor who clinched Academy Awards for the violent 1971 drug saga The French Connection and the 1992 Western Unforgiven. And let's quickly get you some sports news. We begin with Pakistan, Bangladesh, which ended in a wash. Pakistan ended their champions in the home Champions Trophy without a win after rain washed out their dead rubber against Bangladesh at the Rawalpindi Cricket Stadium on Thursday. Pakistan, who won the 50-over tournament in 2017, lost to New Zealand and India and finished at the bottom of Group A. Bangladesh faced similar fate as their opponents. On the other hand, India and New Zealand have progressed to the semis from Group A. Meanwhile, buoyant Afghanistan will face Australia in Group B match of Champions Trophy in a bid to secure semi-final berth on Friday. In Lahore, Afghanistan knocked world champions England out of the event with a thrilling 8-run win in Lahore. They play world champion Australia, who need to win this clash to reach the semis of the tournament. Quickly, some soccer news. In English Premier League, Harry Maguire's second half header earned 10-man Manchester United a 3-2 win over Ipswich Town. It's a vital win that pulled Ruben Amon's struggling side clear of the Premier League relegation zone. Philogene scored the opening goal of the match for Ipswich Town. United responded well and turned the match on its head as an own goal from Ipswich captain Sam Morsy and Matthijs Lee Grits close range finish, but the hosts in front after 26 minutes. Maguire settled the match just after the interval to earn United a win that moved them up 14th in the standings, 16 points clear of the Ipswich in 18th. That's all for this edition of DD India News Hour, but let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. Scan the QR code on the screen to download now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Sakal Bhatt from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India News Hour.